This evening, we shall discuss the definitions of anicca, or impermanence, dukkha, unsatisfactory or suffering, and anatta, not self. So we shall explain these characteristics in accordance with the commentaries and the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma. So the commentary explains that the characteristics of impermanence is the mood of rise and fall and change. There's reaching non-existence after having come to be. So there are other commentaries also explains in a similar way. For example, according to another commentary, anicca is defined. Here I shall quote the Pali sentence of ahutva sambonti or hutva pativentiti. Ahutva means it never appeared in the past. Sambonti means due to suitable conditions, then it appears. Hutva pativenti means after appearing, it will cease. So the definition of this Pali quote it is translated as anicca, denotes things come where they never appeared before, and then disappear to where they never went before. So I shall repeat. Anicca denotes things come where they never appeared before, and then disappear to where they never went before. So in other words, if we speak from the conventional reality, a person such as you, I, or being merely consists of a nama-rupa, mental and physical phenomena, in the ultimate realities. So if we see from the point of view of conventionality, you or I never appear before, not even appear in the last moment. Then when one has disappeared, one you never went where one never went before. Disappear to where they never went before. So it's not easy to realize these characteristics anicca. For example, in the previous talk, we were discussing about mentality and physicality, where namarupa occurs as an interdependent state. So, in other words, if one aspire to realize anicca, one cannot realize them if one can be mindful of them when they have arisen or when they have appeared in that present moment. So, in other words, not being existence, then it comes to being and then ceases. The word cease means it doesn't exist anymore. You cannot say that when a phenomenon had disappeared, then when there's a suitable condition, this phenomenon will appear again. So similarly, sometimes the commentary explains or defines the characteristics of anicca in another way. You say that non-existence after having been is the characteristics of impermanence. So when a condition, phenomenon has passed away, you cannot say this phenomenon had gone to somewhere or being stored in somewhere, and then when there's a condition, this phenomenon will appear or will arise again. So this is the characteristics of impermanence. Then the characteristics of suffering is the mood of being continuously oppressed by rise and fall. Or in other words, the nature of being constantly oppressed by the instant arising and passing away. So it is explained in the scriptures and commentaries that what is impermanent is suffering. So when meditators experience painful sensation, they may not yet experience dukkha or suffering. There are three kinds of dukkha or suffering. The first is dukkha, or intrinsic suffering. For example, you experience pain on your legs or any part of bodies. So this body pain is merely dukkha. Everyone experiences this kind of pain, this kind of suffering. It's not difficult to understand this suffering, dukkha. Then the second type of dukkha is viparinama dukkha. There's dukkha due to change. So happiness, as you know, happiness also subject to change. Similarly, the good experience of meditation, either samatha meditation, or concentration meditation, or vipassana meditation, insight meditation, also subject to change. Sometimes during the practice of mindfulness meditation, insight meditation, meditators also experience calmness, and the mindfulness is strong, and the mindfulness is able to mindful and note various phenomena, one after another, very rapidly. And meditators also can realize their true nature clearly. So sometimes meditators take delight in their own experiences. Sometimes they take delight in their own experiences. They forgot to mindful of that feeling of delight. Sometimes they begin to enjoy that experiences for the calmness and so on. So they forgot to mindful and know it. So sometimes they forgot to mindful note the feeling of delight or enjoying their practice, the experiences and so on. When they were not so careful, they could not sustain the virya. Gradually, mindfulness becomes weaker. Then the experience also subject to change. The experience may disappear. Then meditators will desire to gain back the experience. So if they do not mindful of that desire, then they continue their practice. But when they could not realize their desire to gain back the experience, then the experience of frustration or disappointment and so on. So this is due to viparinama dukkha. Samatha meditators also can experience a lot of calmness, concentrations, or deep concentration. But that calmness, deep concentration also subject to changes. So if meditators could not accept that changes, then suffering will arise. So similarly, when the practice of mindfulness meditation has been going on smoothly, but when the mindfulness is distracted by external sense object, or such as noise or sound, so meditators did not pay much attention to mindful and note the hearing of sound. Eventually, they realized that they were struggling with their mind. The mind always wants to go to the sound or the noise. Yet the meditators want to keep their mindfulness, for example, with the basic object of sitting meditation, either movement of the abdomen, or the sitting postures, or the chosen touching point. Eventually, meditators will feel very frustrated. They could not keep their mindfulness with the basic object. So they do not realize that they are trying to exercise some degree of control over the process mindfulness. But this suffering, viparinama dukkha, is also not difficult to understand. Everyone else experiences viparinama dukkha in our life. But the definition of suffering is suffering. The characteristic of suffering is the mood of being continuously oppressed by rise and fall. Here, what's meant by this definition is that the definition refers to sankhara dukkha, suffering due to formations. So it's not easy to realize sankhara dukkha unless meditators have developed momentary concentrations. And they can realize momentary concentration because they have put forth effort to develop mindfulness constantly, continuously. So, in the words, in this practice of mindfulness meditation, insight meditation, when meditators are able to put forth effort in the practice, then the mindfulness will become more and more constant and continuous. So, when the mindfulness is constant and continuous, then the results or the effect is the meditators shall be able to attain deeper and deeper concentration. So the concentration that should be realized by mindfulness meditators is a Anicca samadhi or Vipassana samadhi, momentary concentration. So that momentary concentration gives rise to wisdoms, wisdom that realizes the true natures of mental and physical phenomena through personal experience. So this momentary concentration is not shallow. Sometimes some meditators think that the concentration gained by Vipassana meditators is very shallow. It's not deep. So we have to understand that momentary concentration is also deep enough that enable meditators to realize Vipassana knowledge. So sometimes Anicca samadhi is also known as Vipassana samadhi or Vipassana Anicca samadhi. So in accordance with the explanations of commentaries, momentary concentrations or Anicca samadhi is known as momentary unification of the mind. In other words, concentration lasting only for a moment. In fact, if meditators could develop such degree of deep concentration, they will realize that every phenomenon, either a mental phenomenon or physical phenomenon, is arising and passing away instantly, within a moment. So when this concentration, when it occurs uninterruptedly on its object, and is not overcome by hindrances or defilements, as if this the mind fixes on the object, as if in absorptions. So that's why mindfulness is a full attention, paying full attention to one phenomenon. But at the beginning of practice, meditators might not be able to pay full attention to one phenomenon. As you are mindful of your movements of rising or movement of falling during sitting meditation, sometimes the mind is still conscious of other less distinct objects. For example, coldness, or little bit of pain or numbness, hearing some sound or noise, and so on. So meditators need to be patient, especially hearing some sound or noise. They should not pay any attention to this external sense object. They need If really beyond their level of tolerance, sometimes they may stop the sitting meditation, and if there's a time, they practice walking meditation again. But when meditators are able to develop more and more patience and tolerance, eventually they shall be able to sit longer and longer and able to realize the true nature of the pain. Painful sensation, or for example body pain, is merely an experience of undesirable sensation. It's merely an experience of undesirable sensation. And when meditators can realize that it's merely an experience of undesirable feeling, and they could sustain effort and note it more attentively, then they realize the painful sensation doesn't last that long. Sometimes merely lasts more than a moment or second, or sometimes the pain will pass away within a moment. Meditators have to bear in mind, dukkha here means sankhara dukkha. So only Vipassana meditators can realize sankhara dukkha. Then anatta. Anatta doesn't become apparent because it's concealed by compactness. Compact means meditators cannot see the material elements clearly. They think this something that's very compact or very solid. But when meditators can see clearly the four material elements, then they realize that there's no self except this body is merely consists of four material elements. The way of the practice of mindfulness, if meditators did not practice it correctly, then they may gain concentration, but not clear insight knowledge. So that's why meditators have to realize that they have to see this nama rupa, mental and physical phenomena, as a conditioned phenomena. Although in the text as well as the commentaries say that Vipassana bhavana or insight meditation means realizations or right understanding of anicca, dukkha, anatta through direct knowledge. Here direct knowledge means one gain this knowledge through direct experience or personal experience. But without seeing the specific characteristics or the individual characteristics of mental physical phenomena clearly, and their occurrence as a state of interdependence. It means their condition is each other for the arising and passing away. Then it's not possible to realize anicca, dukkha, anatta. So meditators must be clear about the path to develop vipassana. Sometimes meditators put a lot of effort in order to see anicca, So some meditators are able to see anicca when they are watching or observing the movements rising, falling. Sometimes they can realize a series of a process of movements, rising, 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 or falling, 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 and so on. Yet they cannot perceive the consciousness so clearly. They might have the idea that there's only a single process of awareness or mindfulness that has been mindful of various processes of rising movements or few processes of falling movements and so on. So that's why without seeing the specific characteristics or the individual characteristics of the mental and physical phenomena clearly, and have not yet realized their cause and effect, their relationship between them, meditators will not be able to see or realize anicca, dukkha, anatta clearly. So in fact, when meditators can realize one of the common characteristics, for example, anicca clearly, completely, the meditators also realize dukkha and anatta. Sometimes some mindful meditators, Vipassana meditators, say that they could see anicca and dukkha, but they cannot see anatta. If they cannot see anatta, in other words, they also could not realize anicca and dukkha. We do not see anicca, dukkha, anatta at three separate times. Sometimes meditators think that I shall put effort to realize anicca clearly. Later on they say, I want to see the dukkha. This is not a correct saying. Because every phenomenon has these three characteristics. They doesn't appear separately. So if meditators can see anicca completely or thoroughly, actually they come to realize dukkha and anatta as well. For example, when meditators can see anicca clearly, can they find a self? They could not find a self, because what they realize is the instant arising and passing away of mental and physical phenomena. They could not perceive any form or shape except phenomenon that's arising and passing away. So sometimes when the meditators could develop sharp mindfulness and deep concentration, actually they realize that ultimately do not move over to another place. They cease and vanish at the places they come into existence. But sometimes meditators, for example, they have the experience that their painful sensation is moving from one place to another place. Actually, there is no ultimately that will move from one place to another place. So meditators need to develop sharper mindfulness and deeper concentration. Then they realize that every phenomenon is arising and passing away at the very same place that it comes into existence. So only when meditators can realize anicca, dukkha, anatta clearly, then they shall overcome their mental defilements gradually. In the practice of Vipassana meditation, mindfulness meditations, first of all, meditators overcome the mental defilements or abandon the mental defilements during the practice. So this way of abandonment or overcoming mental defilements is known as the Tathanga Pahana. The Tathanga Pahana means, the commentary explains that with the arising of insight knowledge, then the defilements will be removed by the experience of insight knowledge. For example, when meditators can develop sharp mindfulness and deep concentration, then they realize that at every moment there's a process of movements, and there's a process of awareness or the conscious knowing. Apart from these two processes, they could not find any other things. So they realize that there's no self, there's merely a pair of processes. So that experience the notion of self at that moment. But when the mindfulness is not sustained, or because effort is not sustained, when the concentration, the power concentration has weakened, then that experience disappears. Then the idea or the notion of self will come back. So when the notion of self has come back, then that's why the meditators will feel some frustration. They desire to gain back the experience again, and so on. When they cannot realize their desire, then sometimes they may feel some aversion. Similarly, in meditators can sustain the effort, then they overcome other defilements. For example, the three kinds of papancha. Papancha, there's craving or tanha, mana or conceit, ditthi, the view of self. So according to the commentaries, this Tathanga Pahana paved the way to the attainment of Samujjeta Pahana. Samujjeta Pahana means defilements abandoned by path knowledge. So if meditators keep on practicing, after attaining this Tathanga Pahana, then they keep on practicing, then it's possible to attain Samujjeta Pahana. For example, at the moment of attaining the first path knowledge, that path knowledge will remove this ditthi, the view of self, and what called doubt or vicikiccha. But sometimes some teachers and commentaries also explains Tathanga Pahana as a partial remover. So how does this come to be? For example, take a memory or a painful memory. As you know, sometimes the mind likes to think of the past or the future. The mind is hardly staying in the present moment. It's the nature of the untrained mind. So sometimes the mind will think of the past. A memory has a reason. Sometimes the memory can be either a painful memory or present memory. So sometimes the mind always think about certain painful memory, Though we know that it's suffering, whenever that painful memory has arisen in mind. But as long as you have not yet developed inside knowledge of the inside knowledge that penetrate into the true nature of this memory, the mind will think back again. You go back to the same memory again. So that's why when we, in meditation, when we talk about attachment is not only about attachment about sweet memory or presence object, sense object, and so on. Actually, our mind, as our mind is not yet well developed or cultivated, our mind also attached to this painful memory. So meditators have to face with it. As I explained in previous talk, mindfulness is manifested as a mental state, turning towards the object, or going towards the object, coming face to face with the object or the phenomenon. So meditators have to note thinking. Sometimes meditators have not note thinking. That memory has caused a defilement to arise. For example, anger. The meditators have to mindful note anger. If meditators are mindful note anger, at the same time the mind still think about that story or the story in that memory, then the anger will not disappear. So they have to pay full attention to the anger that has arisen at that present moment. Then they note it as it really occurs. Sometimes they have to mindful note it many times. Then they only realize the anger has subsided. But maybe very soon, same thing will recur again. Just like samsara. As long as we are not enlightened, we shall go through this process of birth and death in the samsara again. So our mind also will sometimes have to mindful and note the same thing again. Until you feel boring, or you really want to experience some peace of mind, then you have to bring up your courage to note it. So when meditators are mindful and note it again, in fact, meditators are mindful and note the same phenomena again in their walking meditation, sitting meditation, mindfulness of daily activities. So the question is whether you have made progress in your mindfulness. If you have not made progress in your mindfulness, even though you have been mindful, note the same thing again, then you cannot make much progress. So just like in physical training, or sports and so on, sometimes meditators, sometimes the sportsmen have to practice again in order to become skillful. So similarly, meditators have to mindful note the same thing again. So when meditators are able to mindful note the same memory again, and then if that memory give rise to defilements for anger, they note anger. Eventually, when they make progress, they realize that the anger getting lesser, the anger that caused by that memory is getting weaker. Then eventually, meditators can note that memory quite instantly. As soon as that memory has appeared, meditators note it, and that memory disappears very instantly. Then meditators realize that there's no anger arising due to that memory. Why? There's no anger arise at that time. It's because meditators have realized that the memory is not a permanent process. It's merely a mental process that has arisen and then pass away by itself. So meditators realize that meditators can't attach or cling to anything that is not permanent. We can cling to something or attach to something because we take it as something that's permanent or everlasting. So meditators can realize that this phenomenon, this memory, is not a permanent process. There's no self or an I. It's merely a thinking process, and meditators can mindfully know it instantly. Then anger will not arise. In fact, the immediate cause of mental defilements or unwholesome deeds, according to teaching, is due to the wrong view of self, or the notion of self. Or the immediate cause of arising of defilements and other wholesome deeds is due to this notion of self, I, you, and so on. So this way of overcoming defilements, some teachers explain it as partial removal. So when meditators purposely think back of that memory, recall back the memory, the mind sometimes seems like calm, not reacting to that memory. But defilements can still arise when there are other disagreeable sense objects come into contact with the mind. But if the meditators keep on practicing, applying the mindfulness on it, then this sense object will not cause the arising of defilements. Or if any defilement does arise, the defilements will not be strong. So that's why it's important to mindful of the mind, mindful of the contact with the sense object and so on, especially any sense object that can arouse the arising of mental defilements. So the purpose of practicing mindfulness meditation is to remove or to abandon the mental defilements. So when you practice mindfulness meditation well, you realize that your mind becomes more peaceful or calmer. But if you practice concentration meditation, you may not be able to experience calmness, peacefulness all the time. By practicing concentration meditations, meditators can suppress the mental defilements from arising whenever they have developed strong concentration. But as soon as they have stopped the practice, concentration also disappear. The concentration will disappear gradually. So concentration is not last forever. So that's why sometimes meditators did not mindful of the distraction, then defilements can arise. So this is the definitions of the three characteristics of Anicca, Dukkha, and Anatta. So the most important factor to realize, in order to realize Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, is what we call conditionality. So the phenomenon, that's why we always remind meditators to live at the present moment. The phenomenon that has arisen, that has appeared at that moment, can be taken as object mindfulness. So meditators can see the relationship between the mindfulness and the object that has appeared at that present moment. The purpose of practicing Vipassana meditation is to realize Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta through direct experience or personal experience. Before meditators can realize Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta clearly, they also have to realize their specific characteristics and their relationship in terms of conditionality clearly. Then they shall realize Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta clearer and clearer, and shall be able to make progress, more and more progress, and it shall attain path knowledge eventually. So I wish meditators are able to rightly understand the correct way of developing mindfulness, the correct technique of cultivating mindfulness, so that mindfulness will lead to concentration and clear insight knowledge, and eventually you attain their spiritual goals. There's attainment of enlightenment eventually, and live in ultimate bliss and happiness.
taste of anicca. Fortunately, the recording all. No, something wrong. Something wrong.
I think the battery, you on it charging together.
It could be the battery. So now I have to off it and charge it. Now I off it, but when I off it, the thing charge. Now it only seems to be working.
I think the battery not charged, used up already.